What is going on? Cheers. Happy New Year. Today is a highly requested video over on Instagram. On my stories, I've been doing a lot of before and afters on photos using Lightroom. And a lot of people have been asking me, when are you gonna make the tutorial to show us? Because it is kind of a confusing app. There is a lot of different things going on, but once you learn it, it takes like 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Edit a few photos and it becomes really easy and just really fast to make your photos just look way better on Instagram, make your feed look better. Basically make everything look just more professional and more Instagram influencer friendly. Let's hop into my phone, and this is gonna be a mobile tutorial, so this is not for a desktop. This is strictly the free app that you can get off the App Store. You can purchase the upgrade for, I believe it's like $1.20 or something a month, or maybe more, but that upgrade's definitely worth it, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But you can always just rock it for free as long as you want, and it's still a really good app. So let's dive into the tutorial here. I'm gonna show you just the basics. You know, anyone can do this, so follow along. All right, so we're gonna start with this photo here at Sunshine Donuts that I took the other day. I just really like this one because it was like a perfect time of day. As you can see, the shadows on my feet are really long, which is like almost like a golden hour feel. So it really gives the photo some really good colors. So it gives us an opportunity to make the photo look that much better. So this is the before and after that I'm showing you here. As you can see, I'm a big fan of the teals and oranges still. It is a really common theme that you see around just because they're opposites on the color wheel, and they contrast nicely and they just look really good together. So that's kind of my favorite look at the moment, is kind of like an orangey and teal. So I will show you how I did this photo, and we'll just try to recreate it as we go along. So I'll get the raw photo back. All right, boom. So we got a plain slate here. So what you can do is, a lot of people sell presets, and you can kind of use a preset to have a base, and a lot of presets honestly are good on their own. You don't even need to do anything. But that's if you want to spend some money on someone's presets, and honestly you can do it all yourself if you just learn like 10 minutes. So I'm going to show you just from scratch here just how I do a lot of my photos. I have used presets in the past, and they are super convenient, and they might help you learn editing faster because you can see what people do with their presets. But we're going to do this one right from scratch to teach you guys the real way. And by the real way, I just mean the long way. So let's get into it. First things first, sometimes I hit this auto button down here, and what this does is just auto corrects the light. So it usually exposes the photo correctly, brings the shadows down. As you can see, it brought the highlights way down, it brought the shadows way up, which is something that I usually do in my photos because usually the skies are really bright and then your subject is shadowed. So bringing down the highlights, I'll show you what it looks like before and after. We'll undo that, the autocorrect. So I use the autocorrect kind of, like I said, just as a base, but what it does is it just exposes the photo, right? So if we just bring up the exposure a little bit, as you can see, I'm playing with the highlights here. It's basically just on that right side is really highlighty. So I would bring them down just a bit. And then shadows, as you can see, I'm kind of in a shadow because I'm not facing the sun. So I'm gonna bring the shadows pretty far up there, about half. The whites are also kind of like the highlights, but it's self-explanatory. It's just the whites of the photo. It really brings the white out. So I usually tend to bring the whites up and the highlights down. They kind of contrast each other or cancel each other out. If you bring the highlights down, it makes the photo a little bit darker, but then you bring the whites up and it just brings the whites out of the photo, if you get what I'm saying. And it's kind of the same thing with the shadows and the blacks. I like to bring the shadows way up, but then I'll bring the blacks down to kind of like bring the blacks back to life and not make them as faded. As you can see here, if I bring the blacks back and just play with the shadows, if I bring the shadows way up, it makes the photo kind of a faded look. But if I leave them way up and then go down to the blacks and play with the blacks, just bringing it down a bit, and it can bring the color right back, and there's no faded, but the shadows are still raised, if that makes sense, if you guys understand. You can bring the shadows up, but you can bring the color back, the blacks back, by using that. So that's kind of something I've been doing for a little while. Just to kind of get the right exposure for the photo, that's something that's definitely ideal. The first step is always try to expose your photo correctly, and then you can start playing with the colors afterwards. So if you really don't care that much, you can honestly just hit the auto button, and usually it's all right. You can just do a little bit of tweaking. From there, I don't really play with the curves too often. I usually just do it all here in the exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. I'll just play in this little screen for about 5 minutes. To be honest, that looks pretty good to me. Maybe bring the shadows down a little bit and the whites up. And then we'll bring the blacks down like I was saying. As you can see, there's already kind of a nice increase in brightness and you can kind of see me more as the subject. But I will show you how to kind of expose your subject a little bit more using the paid version, which is something you can't do in the free version. But this honestly looks pretty good as is. So we will scroll over to color. And color, this is basically where you're gonna do all your fine adjustments that can totally change the way the photo looks. If the photo is really orange, then I will bring down the temperature a little bit. But as you can see, temperature just brings in the oranges and brings in the blues. It's almost personal preference. You can make your photos a little bit warmer. You can make your photos a little bit colder. Whatever you're feeling, whatever kind of matches your feed on Instagram, whatever you want to do. Personally, I usually keep it just about the same or just increase the warmth just a bit. Make it a little bit warmer. And then I usually always leave tint. That just changes the color from purple to green, like who wants that, right? Vibrance, I'll usually bring up just a touch. So vibrance is kind of like saturation, it's just not as intense. So as you can see, if I crank it, it just really brings the colors out. So I do like to add just a bit of vibrance, maybe 15 or 17. Saturation I'll also crank up to about 13 or so. And then once you adjust the colors, you can kind of go back and fix the saturation and stuff, whatever you want. But going back up to the top here of the colors, you can see it says mix on the top right corner. Click on mix, and this is where you can adjust all individual colors. And you can also change the hue, the saturation, and the luminance of each color. So it gives you total like creative freedom, which is awesome. Definitely what makes the app so good, so powerful. Let me explain kind of what hue, saturation, and luminance do. And I feel like the best way we can do that is with the blues, because the sky is so blue that you'll definitely be able to see that the most. So playing with saturation on the blue here, as you can see, I take it way down, the saturation, it goes gray, and I crank it up and it goes super blue. So you always want to find a happy medium where, I mean, you could have a gray sky if you wanted to. That's the thing about this app, is you can do whatever you want. But personally, I like to really bring the blues up a little bit lately, trying to keep that travel feel on my feed. And then as far as the hue goes, you can change the color. So if you drag it over to the right, you're gonna go purple. If you drag it over to the left, you're gonna go more like a tealy green. So I like to go to the left just a bit, maybe about -25. As you can see at the top, it shows you your value, what you're at. So it says hue, -50, -40. Personally, I like to go about -29. As you can see, that's like a nice tealy blue. And then luminance, so the bottom one here is gonna be basically the brightness of that color. So if you crank the brightness of the blues, you can see the sky lights right up, it almost takes away all the color. And then if you darken the color, boom, it's like a totally ugly blue darkness. So usually, if I really want a color to stand out, I'll change the darkness and really make it a little bit darker. So I'll bring the luminance down to like -30, something like that, as you can see that difference. Just makes the color stand out a little bit more. But yeah, so make sure you use all three of these. Like at first, when I first got this app, I would just play with saturation because I didn't really know what hue and luminance do, but those are huge factors in changing the way photos look. So moving on to the yellows. Usually I try to take the yellows right out of my photo and the greens. Greens and yellows I try to just wipe out. But as you can see in this photo, it is golden hour, so a lot of the yellow is on the ground and on that sunshine sign in the background. So I'm going to take the yellows down just a bit. And also, if you go to hue on yellows, as you can see, you can change the yellow to like more of an orange, or you can change the yellow to like a bright yellow and green. Just by dragging it to the right and then dragging it to the left makes it more of an orangey red. Usually I'll bring the yellows down to like an orangey color, just to make everything kind of orange and teal like I was saying. And that kind of just gives a softer tone to the photo rather than like the kind of gross yellow. And then I'll bring the saturation down a little bit. And then as far as the luminance goes, you can kind of play with it on each photo. As you can see the difference here, it's like kind of lighting up the donut a little bit, lighting up the lights. The sign in the background really pops when I bring it down. And then it's just the concrete on the ground is just changing. So personally, I kind of like it a little bit darker just because that sunshine sign pops out a lot. So I'll bring it down to about -35. We'll do that. That looks all right. And as you can see here, the before and after, we already have a huge change in the way the photo looks. It's just really brightened up and it's got that nice teal sky with a nice orangey yellow bottom. on the concrete there. So it's really, it just changed, like that was, what was that, like 5 minutes of editing, not even, and it just changed the photo that much, made it look way better. So that's your basic color panel. Make sure you know hue, saturation, and luminance. Hue is gonna change the color of that color. Saturation is gonna bring the, obviously, more color into that color. And then your luminance is gonna be how dark or how bright that color is. So play with all three and get used to it, because you can really do some powerful things. So next, we'll go over to effects. So effects, I usually don't play with too much. I usually just bring up the clarity. So the clarity is kind of like structure on Instagram, if you know what structure is. It kind of just adds like a little bit of sharpness and detail. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. As you can see, I crank it. It really just darkens some parts of the photo and really makes it pop. Or you can soften it and it kind of gives it like a glow look. So what I like to do personally is just a bit of clarity, probably like +10. And it just adds a little bit of detail to the shadows. Really makes things pop just a little bit more. So I'm gonna do +18. Honestly, I don't play with dehaze too much unless I really want the colors to pop, and then I'll bring it down a bit. But I'm not gonna touch that for this photo. And then vignette. Vignette is kind of what you see on those photos that have like the black rings around them. You probably know once you see it. So going down to the left, you can see the vignette on the side. It kind of comes in. I'll show you an exaggerated all the way. So it's really dark. You can go the other way, it makes it white, but I mean, I've never really seen anyone use the white side. It's kind of pretty ugly. I usually tend to add maybe just a little bit of vignette, depends on what the photo is. If it's like a dark, moody scene, then I'll definitely add a fair bit. But for this photo, I think I'm just gonna add like -10, just a touch. Just because it really kind of adds like almost a layer of depth to the photo, I guess. Just kind of makes you focus more on the subject in the middle of the photo, I find. So I like to just add a touch. Going down, feather, midpoint, roundness, that's all for the vignette. It's like, makes the circle of the vignette more round, feathers it a little bit more. You can play with that. Honestly, not something really too much to worry about. Grain is another big one. I usually don't use any grain, but grain is quite popular on Instagram these days. Everyone's using kind of like the vintage look. So if you really wanted something vintagey, as you can see, I'll add total grain, and then it really just makes your photo look old school. So you could add a bunch of grain if you wanted to, or you could just leave it off. Sometimes a little bit of grain adds a nice texture, but I'm just gonna put like 5, leave it at that. And then you can change the size of the grain and the roughness of the grain. So play around with that if you want. Next is details. So this is where your sharpening is, and I definitely suggest using sharpening on pretty much every photo, because photos can be soft most of the time when they're stock and raw right out of the camera. So I like to add just a bit of sharpening, usually just like 20. You don't want to go too overboard with sharpening, or it's pretty obvious that you like really sharpen the photo. So just a subtle amount, 15 to 20, I'm gonna add on there. And then there's masking, detail, radius, all to do with the sharpening. You can fix that if you want. I don't really do too much with that. I just add a little bit of sharpening and I'll leave it at that. And then you have optics. Honestly, I don't know about optics. I've never used them. Geometry, it's just kind of playing with your photo. So say you had some leading lines on a photo and it looks really nice, but you took the photo like kind of sideways. You could fix it in crop and then go to geometry and like straighten certain things horizontally, if that makes sense. Try to play with it. You can definitely manipulate your photo to make it symmetrical if that's what you're after. And I forgot to show you the crop, so I'll show you that now. So crop is over at the start here, and that just gives you the basic cropping capabilities. You can rotate, and then you can also like slightly rotate if you just drag this little line right here. So that was super fast, and automatically our photo just looks much better, much brighter. So now I'm gonna move on to the paid feature, which is selective editing. So it's right here on the far left, selective. It's kind of like a mask, so you can edit certain parts of the photo and not the whole photo at once. So you click this little plus sign on the top left, and then you have the choice to paint a mask, to do a circle mask, or a square or rectangle mask. So first I'm gonna show you kind of how I do like a sunburst or sun flare, and it kind of adds contrast to the photo, makes it a little bit more exciting, I guess you could say. So I'm gonna select the square up top, and then I'm gonna zoom out the photo just by using my 2 thumbs. And you can see it adds kind of like a little bunch of lines here. So the red part that it's showing is what you're going to be editing. So I'm gonna grab the mask and you can drag it out, as you can see. And then if you grab the middle line, you can rotate it. And then I'm gonna grab that little blue ball and move it around. So I'm gonna move it up to this corner, because as you can see by my shadow, that's where the sun's actually coming from. Make sure you're always actually doing what looks right in the photo, because if If you put the sun on the wrong side, that might look kind of weird. So the shadows are going that way, the sun's coming from this way, so I'm gonna stretch this adjustment layer from there. So as you can see, that red part is what we are going to edit. I'm gonna click on light, and that brings up the light tab that we had originally on the photo, but this is just gonna edit the selective portion. So I'm gonna crank up the exposure a bit, and as you can see, it's just adding a nice flare on that side. So I'm probably just gonna add about half the bar, a little bit less, probably 1.15 right there. That looks good to me. And that's all I'm gonna adjust on that, is just the brightness of the exposure. And then I'm gonna go to color, and then I'm gonna crank the temperature. So if you bring the temperature down, it's gonna make it more blue. If you bring the temperature up, it's gonna make it more orange. So as you can see, I'm just gonna use a little bit of warmth here just to warm up that selection. I'm gonna click OK with the little check mark at the bottom. And then now, as you can see, when I go to my selection, this is the difference. So that's without it, and that's with it. That's without, that's with. So I find it's a really nice touch. It kind of looks like the sun is kind of busting in with some brightness. You can really go all out with it and bring it across like your whole photo. But I want to keep some of that blue sky in there, so I'm just going to drag it over like half the photo. So that looks nice, but if you look at the one on my Instagram, my body is much more lit up and my face is much more lit up, and it really makes me stand out in the photo. So how I did that was also with the selective editing, but I did a circle mask. So I'll show you right here. I got a circle, and I'm just gonna make it really small around my face. You can always zoom into the photo to make a much more accurate edit. So I'm gonna make the circle nice and small like my face. Rotate the circle a little bit just by clicking on the line and turning it. Right there, looks perfect. So I'm just gonna go to light and exposure. As you can see, the exposure, I can make my face totally black, or I can make my face totally white. So I'm gonna find a happy medium where it just lights it up enough that it doesn't look fake, but it looks good. So I'd say that right there. And see, even just that adjustment has changed so much. It just makes my face pop out that much more. And then I also think I added them to my hands and to my legs just to make my whole body kind of pop up. So I'll use the circle mask again for that. Zoom in, make it nice and small, make them skinny. You can kind of make your circle fit any body part. I like to do all the body parts separate, just so the mask is a little bit more accurate. And then something like that on the leg, and then just bump up the exposure a little bit. You just want to do a tiny little bit of adjustment on this, or else it'll look like way too fake. And obviously this is going like above and beyond. You don't have to do this on every single photo. This photo I was just kind of in the shadows, so I wanted myself to stand out a little bit more. So I'm gonna go to my hand and coffee here, make that circle adjustment, go to light, exposure, just bump up the exposure a little bit, maybe bring the whites up a bit for the cup, ba-boom. And then one last circle for the donut box and my other hand. Just a quick circle adjustment, ba-boom. Go to light, exposure, bring that up just a bit, and bring up the whites. Boom. And as you can see, just like that before and after, my body just pops out that much more. I was kind of in the shadows before, but now the background, the whole photo is edited, plus my face and hands are popping at the center of the photo. So boom, that's it. That's the tutorial. I'm just gonna show you that one photo for right now. Whoa, dude, can't even see me right now, but just wrapping up this Lightroom tutorial. I forgot to film the end of it and I started editing another photo, but I'm just gonna cut it there at that photo because this tutorial is already friggin' 20 minutes long. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Drop it a like for me, subscribe if you haven't. Everyone in my house is sleeping right now, so I apologize for whispering. Love you guys, see ya.